Hey, this is Red Jolteon, and we're going to be recording my draft review for season 12 for VBL-S. First off, I just want to thank everyone for just being a really cool community last season during my rookie premiere. It was really fun just to make it all the way. So just want to thank you all for being really, really cool and looking forward to being around for a while. But yeah, just wanted to give a shot at actually doing my own review and recording for my own draft. Also, shout out the logo this season. Really, really liked how it ended up coming out. So thanks to everyone who contributed to making that. All right, so we have 32 teams in one draft pool. So that makes for a pretty chaotic draft. I had a ton of fun watching how everything just kind of unfolded. And I thought it was really interesting just how you couldn't really plan picks ahead at all. Like if you wanted a specific mod, like you had to take it right there, and there was nothing you could do about what you were going to get next. So snipes were just like happening all over the place for everyone, and it kind of added this really cool element of making draft picks tradable and making those trades a little bit more valuable and intriguing. Because if you can get back-to-back picks or get picks closer together, that goes a long way in building the team that you want in such a deep draft pool. So I thought that was really interesting, and I think just overall seeing these more diversified teams in draft made this a really, really exciting draft. So really looking forward to see how everything pans out for everyone and the creative builds that people decide to make. All right, so for my initial hopes for this season's draft, I think the first and foremost thing I always look at is trying to making a really good Firewater Grass core and a Fairy Dragon Steel core. Obviously, you could also go for the Dark Fighting and Psychic core, which I think I ended up getting with my draft, but it wasn't my initial immediate thought. Um, so in order to do this, I really wanted a draft pick between 8 and 20, just because it gave me a really strong first pick to build around, while also giving me not too much of a turnaround between picks, which is kind of a stretch given how deep this draft pool is with 32 users. So only having to wait about 20 picks between the tail end, and then waiting, I think, 40 something on the way back. I could live with that. It wasn't the end of the world for me. I wanted to diversify my picks, not just go really, really top heavy. And the other thing I wanted to do was get really good base stats overall, just because in such a deep pool, I feel like that would go a really, really long way and just making myself a little bit more um, tricky to deal with in terms of getting rid of my Pokemon and just being able to dish out damage at the same time. So, first pick, I took pick number 10 to draft pool and was really hoping some specific Pokemon from the new DLC would have made it to me. However, I got sniped at multiple spots in those first 9 picks. A lot of those mons being like Gouging Fire, Raging Bolt, and Ogerpon, Wellspring. Those were 3 mons that I really had my eye on and really wanted to try since I hadn't really used them in draft before. So definitely was a little bit disappointed to see so many of those Pokemon falling in the first 10 picks. But I did end up getting a very, very good first pick with Fluttermane. Um, Not really a huge fan of how expensive it was at 27. I definitely wanted something a little bit cheaper to build around initially, but I feel like at 10, this was pretty good value just in terms of what I could do with it, versatility wise, and just like the overall power levels that it has. So yeah, definitely a very strong Pokemon. It fits onto a lot of different types of teams, has good synergy with a lot of different modes, and I also just really like having a boost in energy mon that I can use no matter what draft I have. So that's definitely a priority for me. So being able to get that out of the way first pick was definitely a good thing, in my opinion. Very good fairy type. Fairy types are very important in draft, and being able to get pretty much the best one definitely made my life a little bit easier in building. And it's also a fake out immunity, which I really appreciated. Cons, though, definitely did not like how expensive this thing was. 27 points is a lot to spend, and kind of felt like it kind of put me back in terms of what available to pick in the future rounds. But I think I was able to mitigate that pretty well overall. It's also pretty physically frail, That is definitely one of the biggest challenges it struggles with. But because its other stats and SPDF, special attack and speed are so high, you don't really necessarily need to invest in those as much. So definitely going to be excited using this mon. I've never really tried using it either in ladder or in draft, so kind of something new for me. Pick two, Miastic Male. Uh, Prankster and Fake Out was a really cool combo that I saw on the board. I know that Electric kind of talked me through this pick. So shout out to him for giving me all that. Really appreciated their input. Um, Obviously, support Mons did very, very well for me last season with Murkrow, assisting a lot of different pieces that were on my team. So I kind of wanted to go a similar route um, without necessarily just going Murkrow again. Murkrow was available at my pick, and I think it would have been a very good pick should I have chosen to drive it again. But I also like trying new things each season. So perhaps another season, Murkrow might make it back to the Jakarta Jolteons, but not this year. Um, it's a very, very good support mon. Really good move pool. And having Fake Out on top of that with its speed is definitely a very, very good aspect. Um, it's very, very good in terms of like uh, preventing Trick Room just because of Imprison. You have that as an option with Prankster, so you can always make sure that's going off first. It's got screens, it's got different weather options. I guess the only thing it doesn't really have going for it is the Tailwind option. So um, I like the pick a lot. I'm excited to try using it this season. I will say it's not the bulkiest Pokemon, and Psychic isn't necessarily the bulkiest type in terms of its weaknesses, and it also doesn't really have super high offense. So it's definitely going to be pretty much that tried and true support mon that I hope it will be. So excited to use it. We'll see how it ends up panning out for me. Bisharp at pick 3 was one of my favorite picks, at least in the top half of the draft. Um, I definitely wanted a steel type with this pick, and there were a few on the board at the time that I was looking at, specifically King Gambit, Hoodra, um, and Scizor. But King Gambit was way too expensive for me to really consider taking as much as I liked it. Scizor I've used before in a different draft and wasn't super wowed by it, but it's definitely a very good option, and I would have been happy picking it. Priority Bullet Punch is always really good with Technician. Um, and Gudra Hisui kind of would have been a fun pick, but also a little bit expensive just for my taste at the time. So we have Bisharp instead. We have the Value Gambit. It's cheaper. It's got a Violate access, and it's got a lot of the same things going for it that King Gambit does. It has Defiant, really good typing defensively and offensively for that matter. It doesn't have as much of a move pool as King Gambit does. And it's definitely not as bulky without that Violate. It definitely does not hit as hard without that extra attack, but it's still a very strong Pokemon. Um, its speed, not great. It is faster than Gambit, but Gambit also operates really well under Trick Room, so that could be a problem for it going on with this draft. And 4 times fighting weakness makes it kind of frail against a lot of like priority users with like Mach Punch, just body press users. So definitely have to figure out how to maneuver it around, but it's great. It resists ghosts, so I don't have to worry about Flutter Mane being too weak, along with Meowscarada or Meowstic, sorry. And yeah, I just look forward to using it. All right, so at pick 4, we took up our Tailwind user Moltres. There were not a ton on the board that I was like really wowed by, and the ones that I would have liked probably would have taken a little bit earlier. But Moltres gave me something that I didn't have yet, which was a fire type. And like I said earlier, I really wanted to build that fire water grass core, and just kind of fit the bill. It's really, really bulky. Has really good abilities with flame body, decent offense, could definitely hit pretty hard without having to invest too hard into it. And it fit pretty well synergistically with the rest of my team. And now I have my Tailwind setter, and I thought at 9 points, this was definitely kind of a steal. Really, really undervalued just for me, in my opinion. So I was definitely happy taking it, and I'm really excited to see what I can do with it in the future. Definitely don't love it being 4 times Rock Week. Kind of makes it a Terra Hog in some cases, but I don't think that really matters too much when you got as much of a move pool as it does in in terms of how long he can stay on the board, I'm perfectly fine burning my Terra on this thing. Pick 5 was Garchomp for me. Really, really like this Pokemon. Been one of my favorites since I started getting into the game. Um, and it kind of fit the bill for what I wanted. I wanted a Dragon type or a Ground type with this pick, or an ability to expand my Fire, Water, Grass core. And this kind of gave me at least two of those things, right? Ground type and Dragon type makes me electric immune, makes me resist rock, so it helps with Moltres. It's very, very bulky in terms of its defenses, has really good speed and really good offense. So just kind of a good overall pick. A little bit pricey. I think it was like 17 points, so didn't love that. And it is 4 times Ice Week, which is not fun. But overall, I really, really like the pick. I'm looking forward to using it. And another thing that I really liked about it was the ability to spam Earthquake next to Moltres, so really good synergy there. So definitely going to be excited to use this Pokemon going forward this season. So if you recall, in round 6, I traded up to get Feraligatr, and it kind of created a little bit of a stir. Some people liked the move, some people didn't. I was okay with taking this pick. I was trying to move up with a lot of different people. I was offering, I think, my 6th and my 7th round pick just to move up, and then was willing to take a very late round pick in exchange. And I finally got this done with Purple Rain, so appreciate him for getting that through with me. But I wasn't sure if Feraligatr was going to make it in 48 picks back to me. Just didn't believe it. And it might have made it in the next 10 or 12 picks, but I just wanted to really lock it in because I was fine getting this and then pretty much anything else. I would just kind of move along with the board. But this is like the one pick where I was like, this is the Pokemon I want. So I was perfectly happy trading up. It's a very solid component to my Fire, Water, Grass core. Really, really solid bulk overall. I was kind of surprised when I looked at it. And honestly, at 7 points, definitely a steal for me. Definitely felt like this was being severely undervalued. I could see this mon going for as much as 9 or 10, maybe 11 points. So I'm going to try to prove the haters wrong with this pick, or I guess prove the people who like the pick right. I guess we'll see. Sheer Force and Life Orb is always good. Has a great move pool. It just does kind of set me back a little bit in terms of my draft capital, and I guess we'll have to see how I can move along with it. This brings us to pick 7, right? So I've kind of given up a lot of spots between this and my next pick. So this was several, I think at least 2 rounds past when I picked Feraligatr. So a lot of the board was gone at this point. Things I still needed were completion of the Fire, Water, Grass core, and something else that I really wanted was a coaching user. And there were a few options on the board. Lilligant, both of those forms worked really, really well, especially with the Sun mode if I wanted to move with that. Chestnut with there is a really bulky option. And I just kind of saw both of them and it's like, hey, those are 2 good options. But I then saw Virizion, which was about as expensive, if not cheaper, has really, really solid special bulk. It's fast, faster than Garchomp specifically, which means I can spam coaching onto Garchomp without worrying too much about the speed investment. And it just has pretty good move pool. It is not super bulky in terms of defense, and it doesn't have a great attack stat, which are 2 things that it doesn't have going for it. But it is got really, really good special bulk. And it also has an option for me to use beat up against, or it has the option for to be used with beat up and justified if I pick a mon that has beat up, which moves us into our next pick, which was wait, actually, nope, we took Ampharos first. Let's go over Ampharos, I guess. Ampharos at 8. I was kind of budgeting at this point. I needed a special attacker and a trick room option just in case I ever decided to go that route. And I saw Ampharos at 2 points and was like, that works for me. Good bulk for the most part, decent special attack. It's an electric type, which I didn't have yet. And it's got some pretty good moves in its move pool. Just doesn't really have much of a presence outside of Trick Room, so it's not really going to be something I bring every week. So that's definitely something it doesn't have going for it, but I can kind of live with that. Ambipom. There we go. I had 15 points for three more picks at this point. And there were a few different options I was looking at. Obviously, the Magby and Elekid line were available if I wanted that. They had like Electivire on the board. I think Electabuzz was there as well. Magmortar and Magmar were still there, but they were like 12, 13 points. It'd be basically all of my picks or all my points spent on one pick. And it'd be kind of be taking one pointers at the end. I didn't really want to do that. So instead, I went with Ambipom for 6 points. It's fast and it's got good attack, especially with Technician, and it has Fake Out, which I already do have, obviously, but I think just with its offensive ability, I can live with that. It has Beat Up, which pairs well with Virizion, and I think it just overall for 6 points is a pretty good Pokemon. It is a little bit frail and doesn't have a great move pool, but I think just having the access to Beat Up with Virizion is enough for me to warrant drafting it. So definitely a solid pickup for me, I think. This moves us into Skill Villain. So since I did pass on Follow Me, I had basically two picks in this last round and not a whole lot of points to work with, but enough to kind of get a couple of decent options. First off was Skill Villain. So opens up my Sun mode a little bit more with Chlorophyll. It gives me Rage Powder, so I still have some redirection if I want it. It also gets Will-O-Wisp, which I find pretty useful just in terms of making sure I can keep other physical attackers in check and just lowering damage down to myself overall. It is pretty frail. I don't love its stat spread, like 108, 108, and the attack and special attack is pretty useless since you don't really want to use it as a mixed attacker. And it does kind of require Sun to really get activated. But I think for the price, it was definitely a decent pickup, and I'm looking forward to using it. That brings us to our last pick, Quillfish. 3 points. Just kind of took what was best available for me. I needed an Intimidate user, and Quillfish was there. It has really good typing and poison water, so it's got some good defenses in terms of what it resists. It unfortunately cannot hold a Violite since it doesn't evolve like its Hisuian counterpart, and it doesn't really have much of an offensive presence. But it is there at 3 points, and I was like, that was fine with me. Gives me that Intimidate option if I want it, and allows me to move on from there. So overall, looking at my draft, I really, really liked it. I think my overall type chart looks pretty good. Obviously, I do have that ground weakness, but I also have to take into consideration which of these mons I'm actually going to be bringing in each of these weeks, and I don't see myself bringing a lot of ground Pokemon all at once, which I think is useful. Things I did not end up getting were a rock type, an ice type, and a normal type, which I can live with. Garchomp has that access to Rock Slide if I really, really want it. So does for Alligator, I believe. Things that I do have to worry about might be opposing weathers. I do kind of have a clear Sun mode, which I really, really like. But I think with Meowstic, I can kind of work around that with just Prankster Weathers and just move around that in case I have to deal with any of that. My Trick Room mode is not exactly a huge presence on the team. I do have access to Trick Room if I need it, but I also have pretty high speeds overall. Looking at my Pokemon, an average of 92 is pretty high for draft. And Ampharos is the only real abuser of Trick Room, if you can call it that. So it's not necessarily my strongest option, but like you always say, you only have to be as slow as your opponent is, right? So I guess we'll see how that works out. I do have Imprison Trick Room options if I need it, and I'm not too worried about having to deal with that. Overall, I have a pretty good base stat total, which was something I wanted. 521. Pretty happy with that. And I think just overall, I'm really excited to use this team. We'll see if I make any trades in the upcoming weeks. And I'm looking forward to facing my first week opponent. Yeah. Thanks for watching. It's the first time I've kind of done anything like this. So feedback is always welcome. I'm recording this on Zoom because I couldn't figure out how to use OBS. So I guess that's a shout out to our COVID years. But yeah, always looking to become a better player. I'm still pretty new to draft. I've only been doing this for about 9 months. So got a little bit of experience under the belt, but always looking to grow. So looking forward to seeing you all this season. Thanks.